Hello everybody and welcome to my gameplay review for Imperator Rome's 1.4 Archimedes update. Now this update came out a little while ago alongside Imperator's first paid DLC, the Magna Graecia content pack, but for this video I'm just going to be focusing on the free update. I haven't yet purchased the DLC. If I could be perfectly honest, I have no desire to, but if people really want me to do a video about that, then just let me know in the comments and I'll consider it. So, the 1.4 Archimedes update is almost entirely focused on overhauling religion, although it's also made a big change to how loyalty in the game works, as well as some other minor additions to balancing and some changes to the map. So let's start with the big one first, religion. Now previously in Imperator Rome, religion essentially boiled down to calling down one of 6 omens associated with your religion to get some sort of buff, the strength of which would be dependent on your religious unification, your ruler's zeal, and the high priest's zeal at the time. Now, in 1.4, countries have a religious pantheon, and each pantheon can harbor 4 deities. The deities are broken into war, culture, economy, and fertility, and these deities are what you now call upon for an omen. So much like before, you call upon one for an omen, and then you just can't get another omen for a few years. Deities also provide passive buffs even when you're not calling their omen, and you can change what deities are in your pantheon. You have access to every deity belonging to your state religion right from the start, and there's typically about 4 per category that you can choose from, so it's quite powerful. It's almost like having 4 active omens at all times. But swapping them out is going to cost you 15 stability to do so, and you have to wait a while before you can invoke an omen from them when you do that. On top of this, deities will often have an associated location. This is called a holy site. If a deity has a holy site, its buffs will be 25% stronger regardless if the site is within your borders or not. And here's where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. If a holy site is within your borders, regardless of what religion it belongs to, you can access its deity. So for example, as Egypt, your state religion is Hellenic, but you're in a place where there are several Kemetic holy sites. So this means that you can have Kemetic deities in your Hellenic pantheon. You also get more deities available to you for every 10% of your population that belong to that religion. So even without holy sites, you can potentially get other deities into your pantheon. Now why would you want to do that? Well, each religion's deities will be doing different things. So the Kemetic deity Isis, for example, will grant a wrong culture group happiness buff, which is pretty good, especially for Egypt, starting with only a minority of their own culture present. I should mention as well that each holy site is unique to its deity. You can't have 2 holy sites for the same one. As an example, the deity for Athena is in the city of Athens, so let's say you're playing Carthage and you're Canaanite and you want to get Athena into your pantheon, then you're going to either have to take the area by conquest, you could also increase your Hellenic population, or you could adopt Hellenism completely. Now, you can't directly increase a population of another faith. It basically means that you'd be going to war with someone Hellenic no matter what. But hold that thought, we'll come back to that a little bit later. So back to the holy sites. So stick with me for this as it can get a little tricky. If you've chosen a deity and it has a holy site and it's within your borders, you can then place treasures into that holy site. You keep treasures in your reliquary and you get these from certain events, and you can also steal them from other holy sites by using the army ability to desecrate a holy site. There's 3 slots for treasures and they're tied to the size of territory that you have, so a settlement is 1 slot, city is 2, and a metropolis is 3. The treasures you place into a holy site is going to be affecting the entire province, not just the territory. And the treasures are a little bit underwhelming generally. I feel like they're not that powerful, so they kind of end up feeling like just getting another trade good or something like that. The Bronze Age mod had really nice ideas for religion, such as running festivals, and I think treasures could really fit well into that, where it boosts their power during a festival or something along those lines. If your deity doesn't have a holy site, you can actually build one and place it anywhere you want. It costs 400 gold and 100 political influence, and then you just assign it to a deity that doesn't have a holy site yet. If the site is desecrated, then you can build a new one for that deity sometimes. I've had it where sites get destroyed and the deity is just wiped from memory, and I can't work out why this is, but it happens about 30% of the time. And that's basically the religious system. It works this way for everybody except for Judaism, which don't technically have a pantheon. They have a reskinned pantheon called the Jewish Models of Judea, and their deities are all basically deceased characters. So regardless of holy sites or percentage population, Judaism does not allow in other faiths into their pantheon because they're monotheistic. And this puts them at a small disadvantage, so their omens run a little bit longer to make up for that. I think it's a pretty big shame that Judea can't deify their rulers or characters without owning a DLC, because they definitely need it the most. They can't switch out their things like everyone else can. If you own the Magna Graecia DLC, you get to deify rulers to get large benefits, but like I said, I don't have the DLC, but you can kind of see what it's like with their previous characters, and then Alexander, as an example, for the Hellenic faith, starts deified. So you can kind of get a taste for it, but you can't do it, so. Anyways, so let's talk about what's good with this system. Well, you get more omens and more customization to religion in general. Now you can actually get omens from other religions, which is a neat way of representing polytheism. Being able to build holy sites and destroy them is pretty cool as a concept as well. I think it's nice that religion is now tied to the map, even if it's in a small way. So what's wrong with the system? Well, really it's just that the system largely is playing out the same as before, which is to say that you want to just convert everyone to one religion and just wage wars to get any benefits from the others. You're in no way encouraged or incentivized to have a true polytheistic society. And if that's not going to be encouraged, even as just like another type of playstyle, then why bother overhauling anything? It plays the same as before. So let's go through some of the key fundamentals that really brings this feature down. The first is omen power. Now, omen power still comes from religious unity, and religious unity is based on how large a percentage of your nation is your state religion. Taking Egypt as an example, this means that the more Hellenic pops you have, the stronger your Kemetic omens will be. I'm just going to repeat that just to really ingrain that one. The more Hellenic pops you have, the stronger your Kemetic omens will be. It just doesn't really make sense. I tried to kind of have a 50-50 split of Kemeticism and Hellenism and kind of balance the two, but all the pops are just going to be converting to Hellenism no matter what. So eventually, everyone will just unify into one. And there's no way to stop conversions or to build temples for a different deity, so it all just sort of feels pointless. Holy sites also don't really feel grounded. Instead, they just apply blanket bonuses to the pops living there. So for instance, a holy site dedicated to a Hellenic deity will not make a Hellenic pop any happier, nor will it make a Kemetic pop any less happy. It increases migration attraction for both Kemetic and Hellenics equally, which I guess, I don't know, tourism I suppose? You'd think that Hellenic people would want to visit a Hellenic holy site belonging to their religion a bit more. And for some reason, holy sites also apply a debuff to conversion. You think that if anything, it would speed up people who'd want to be converted. And I'm sure you can make up counter arguments and reasons why you think, oh, having a big temple would actually slow the progress of some people converting. Fine, whatever, but it just doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't fit gameplay wise either. You spend all this money investing in a temple and people convert slower. It's just not right. Anyways, there's other concepts then as well that just don't feel fully thought out. You have a list of all your holy sites on the bottom. You can see if they have treasures in them, but you can't take the treasures out without desecrating your own holy sites. And this gives you the items, but it also destroys the site, and as I mentioned before, sometimes it completely destroys the deity. However, if you have the deity active, you can just remove a treasure for one aggressive expansion. It seems odd. You're doing the same thing, just under slightly different circumstances. It also feels weird to be penalized for moving a treasure from, say, a small temple to a massive temple. Sure, the settlement might be upset, I understand that, but why do I suffer aggressive expansion for moving internal treasures around? Things were moved between temples all the time, of the same faith, so I just don't see why global penalty applies with countries far away. Further to that, when you're at war, you can't see the treasures in a temple before you desecrate it, unless you adopt the deity, and then you can see them, but that's going to cost stability, so you're probably not going to do that. So you'll have to gamble when you're desecrating a site and just hope you get something. Or if you instead just annex the territory and keep the holy site, then you can check it and destroy the site through your religion tab later if you want. It just feels really messy. And messy is a good descriptor for the UI and how it feels. When changing a deity, my screen said, select a Kemetic deity of fertility. And the list is full of Hellenic deities, not Kemetics. I thought I was forced to use Kemetic because it said that I had to select one for the first few hours of the game, until I realized I can just choose anything. Like, I knew I could choose anything, but I thought it was kind of like Ideas, where you can choose it if you want, but you get a buff if you stick with the one it's telling me to use. Turns out it's just a text error. It really just should say, select a deity. The reliquary screen is also sort of a UI anomaly. It's almost a duplicate of the holy site screen on the bottom, except with less information. The treasures are listed, but you don't see their combinations or can easily find them by clicking to go to the town they're in. The holy site screen has treasures in it, and you can see all three and click a town to go to them, but you can't filter by treasures. So it's like they both have features of the other one needs. It's really frustrating if you just want to see where your treasures are and what towns have the most. So that's kind of the religious overhaul. Basically, you just convert your pops into one religion and attempt to place them in provinces to get buffs of some sort. I think generally this was a feature that was just not needed at this stage in the life cycle of the game. There's far bigger problems than religion. It's kind of just a distraction in its current state. If the power of omens was based on the percentage of pops belonging to another religion, and you could convert people to that religion, then you've got yourself an interesting system. You could foster and grow other religions and keep people happy by not forcing them to convert. But alas, you can't, so you're stuck with one. Next up is the loyalty rework. So loyalty is now based on static values that don't change, rather than values that would cause loyalty to slowly trend upwards or downwards. So let's take an example and say you have a scorned family, a family without many jobs. In the old version of the game, this would cause a negative to their loyalty and everyone in the family would slowly start trending downwards into disloyalty. Now when a family is scorned, you get an instant -10 for every job they're missing until you fix it. For those who don't know, a character also has a power base and it's closely tied to loyalty. Power is essentially halved and added as disloyalty, the idea being the more powerful, the less loyal. Different jobs add to a character's power base. Large armies, large governorships, being the head of a family, and other high-ranking offices grant you instant power to a character and now, therefore, instant disloyalty. This is a bad system, and I really don't know why they changed it to be like this. I'm not sure the problem they were trying to solve. I mean, sure, the old system definitely needed some tweaks and balancing, but to change it so dramatically, I think has made more problems, at least from my perspective. And I'll explain why. And after I explain why, I'll tell you how they can fix it. And I also did this back in December and even tested it with my own mod, and it seemed to work pretty well. Anyways, the first reason that this is a bad system is that some loyalty is permanent and some is timed. As an example, a bribe will give you 15 loyalty and last you 48 months, but when you hover over the loyalty of a character, there's no way to see when it expires. Sometimes people give you a job and they get a bonus to loyalty, and that's also timed, but it never tells you for how long. With so many characters, this becomes impossible to keep track of, and I'm not saying it's harder to manage. In fact, it's easier to manage, but I'm saying it's harder to keep track of. And a lot of people seem to conflate the two and think that because they're getting disloyal characters more often, the system is way better, it's way harder. But I think that it's happening purely because you just can't know or see when certain traits are going to wear off. Look at this tooltip for loyalty. There are so many positives and negatives, some that are timed, some that are not, and no way to tell what this character is going to be like next month, or in 10 months, or in 2 years, or whatever. Compound this with 10 or 20 other characters that you regularly do keep an eye on, it's just too much busy work. Let's take an example of putting someone on an army. Giving them the job grants them a +15 to loyalty for being granted a new office. Now this is going to wear off eventually, it's a sort of honeymoon period, a sort of false sense of security that he's quite loyal. We're just not told when it wears off, but it does eventually go away. The commanded cohorts that he's now in charge of grants him immediate power, and half of that power number is then subtracted away from his loyalty as well. But like I said, with the kind of honeymoon period of the new job, you don't really notice it at the beginning. Over time, these cohorts that he's in charge of are going to slowly start becoming loyal, knocking his loyalty off one by one after every 2 or so cohorts become loyal. So once you get used to this system, you sort of see how this is working, and you basically only will give armies to characters with good loyalty, or give them to smaller armies so their loyal cohorts can't ever really be an issue. If you never make armies bigger than 15 cohorts, and you never give armies to people with less than 60 loyalty, you really cannot have a disloyal general. It just can't happen unless you have a really big series of bad events, not just one, but like several. Now in the old system, things were sort of similar, except if you had a character with a lot of cohorts, he might require frequent bribes because his loyalty was trending down all the time. If you used the general in wars, he earned money from conquests, and this increased his power further. Not by much, but it did add a little bit. I often found that generals in their 40s or 50s had been around long enough to have a lot of veterans and money, making them harder to manage. Now don't get me wrong, the system was not perfect before, but I do think it was better and had better potential to be pretty great. So here's how I would propose you fix it. Number 1, go back to the old system of trending up and down. It's harder to manage and easier to understand, and it generally just kind of makes more sense. Let's not forget, things could still happen to instantly remove some loyalty as well in that system. Things could still go wrong fast with events or interactions. It wasn't all a ticking timer down or up. But disable any technologies that give loyalty. They're unnecessary and they just make things easier the later the game goes. Number 2, make power base a trending value as well. Right now, when you take someone's job away, they just lose their power and become instantly loyal again. Instead, with a trending power number, you take their job away, they hold on to a little bit of their power, and they'll lose it over time. Number 3, increase the amount of power that you get from gold. Wealth should be important. They've removed that for some reason, and people with money should be able to make more money with it. There's a few ways to do this. With the new uncapped holdings the characters can have, it would be cool to see schemes where characters can buy holdings off of each other and the value of income from them increased. This way you could have your very own Crassus buying up lots of holdings and becoming powerful with it, and with that power he would become disloyal and raise armies. If you're a small country, this might not work as there won't be many holdings, but I'd make an investment scheme where characters can invest into holdings and make money off of them. Number 4, families should become scorned based on their power and prestige, not the amount of jobs that they have or don't have. Right now, families just want jobs. Stick them on an army with one unit and they'll think it's great and stay content. This is stupid. Families should instead care about their power relative to the other families. If they're weak, they should become scorned, and they'll become envious and disloyal at the fact that they're falling behind. That way, you'd need to give them an even spread of power amongst the jobs, not just any job at all. And that's it. Do those 4 things and you're done. You'll have a system where civil wars can occur if you neglect characters or only focus on one family. You'll also have a system where powerful and rich generals will pay for their troops' loyalty. You'll have a system where governors are still well connected and wealthy after you remove them from office. There's never been an issue with the loyalty system. It's a problem with power being too easy to remove. Remember, power is what causes civil wars, not loyalty. So the last thing I'm not really a fan of is going to be a pretty controversial one. Probably going to lose a lot of you on this, but I'm honest at the very least, so here we go. I played as Egypt, and I was given a dilemma early on into my campaign. I got the Wars of the Diadochi. Every leader of the successor kingdoms gets claims on each other for as long as they're alive. Alright, I'm used to that. Next month, I was given an event to say that Macedon had gone to war with Phrygia. 5 months later, I was given an event to ask me if I would honor a past agreement with Cassander and join the fight against Phrygia, immediately waging war. My other option was to ask Phrygia for a territory, but if they refuse, then I have to go to war. I've done this event 6 times, and 5 of the 6 times Egypt goes to war with Phrygia. I just hate this historical railroading. I'm playing as the ruler of Egypt, and if I don't want to fight, I shouldn't be forced into waging a war. It's not like they were attacking me in the events, I'm attacking them, but I have no say on whether I want to or not. To me, a game like this should be a sandbox. I should have complete agency over my country as soon as I hit play. I want it to be as historical as possible up until I take the reins of my country. That's the point. I'm not looking to play a reenactment. I'm looking to play a sandbox simulator set at a certain date. Now, I understand the historical context for the situation, I do, but I didn't want to fight. What if something's changed? I'm busy attacking Kush or someone else, or I want to wait and see what happens between Macedon and Phrygia. Why now am I forced every single game into this war and then to roll a dice on whether it's going to happen or not? I absolutely hate it. So please give me the option to turn this shit off. I hate that Rome gets a free claim on pretty much everywhere it goes. I hate that now Carthage's mission chains always means that they're going to have a 17 marshal naval commander about 50 years in. I just hate that stuff. For me, it sucks the fun out of the game knowing ahead of time that something's going to happen. Or at least even knowing that one of 2 things happens. I just don't like that. At least for me it does. I know for fans of EU4 and CK2 maybe, this isn't as big of a deal as I think they do like that stuff, but I want a game to be fully historical until the moment I hit play, and then have it be up to me how things go. The event that told me about Antigonid and Cassandra's rivalry kicking up a new war in Greece was pretty cool, once, but I'd prefer if it was dynamic. Characters have friends and rivals in the game already, so wouldn't it be cool if those events could happen between rulers 50, 100 years in or whatever into the game? That way you could have your own personal version of the Antigonid and Cassandra crisis, rather than just countries not liking each other with, opinion modifiers. Anyway, that's it. That's it for my video on 1.4. The update is basically the 2 features, religion and loyalty, and I guess I just don't really enjoy them that much. I think religion is better than it was, don't get me wrong there, but it does just play the same, and loyalty is, for me at least, way worse, and it's giving you less options when it comes to managing characters who are disloyal. The changes to the map are good, and the introduction of new map modes is nice. In terms of UI, I personally really hate when you see a character appear for the first time. They sort of flash in with a white flash. Not sure why that's a thing. It's quite distracting. Would like an option to turn that one off. Anyways, I waited to do this video because I actually really don't like being negative. It's really awkward. I just don't like it. But people asked me to cover it, and like I said, I try to be honest. It actually really gets me down that I seem to have to be critical, and a bunch of people probably think I'm just a big bag of salt. I think unfortunately this game is just moving in a direction that I don't fully enjoy. The DLC is really unappealing to me, and it sets a bad precedent for features, I think. I don't mind fleshing factions out, and I'm not anti-DLC by any stretch of the imagination. But in a pack called Magna Graecia, only one country is in Magna Graecia and has crucial religious features buried in there as well. I've heard 1.5 looks really good, but I have yet to catch up on those dev diaries. If you think I'm crazy, let me know in the comments. I love reading the feedback. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.